Okay, our first speaker is Associate Professor Alexandra Ershova, Head of Laboratory for Plastic Pollution Research, Plastic Lab, Russian State Hydrometrological University. The report is New Environmental Problem of the Baltic Sea, Marine Litter and Microplastic. Alexandra, dear Alexandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pavel. Thank you, everyone, and hello. And it's an honor to be here to open this seminar that we have. I would also like to congratulate the BUP community with this 30 years anniversary, and I'm really honored to be the part of it because it's the BUP that actually started my interest in the Baltic Sea as a student, when I took part in the first student conferences in Hell, I think it was in Poland. So it was a long time ago, and still I'm here, and now I'm teaching these BUP courses and the BUP environmental problems. And so Russian State Hydrometrological University greets you all on behalf of the university. Now I will share my screen and start the. So I will talk today about the so-called new problem, environmental problem of the Baltic Sea, the marine litter and microplastics, the problem that has been investigated throughout the last 10 years or so. It's new because it's emerged in the world ocean quite recently and became obvious, and now it's becoming really the global problem, and that's why a lot of studies around the world are focused on this problem. And the Baltic Sea is not the exception. So in the Baltic Sea we have the now the collaboration between the partners in all Baltic states. Many research projects are devoted to the study of this problem, and I will today try to have a short summary of this problem and of our studies in particular. Just first of all, a moment, I'll just. As you see that when we talk about the new problem, we don't forget about the old problems. Of course, Baltic Sea has all its old problems staying with it within this sea, within this enclosed and vulnerable sea, and we do not forget about them. Unfortunately, these problems are to solve these problems, the eutrophication, the change biodiversity, the pollution of biotoxic substances, etc. They are enormous efforts are taken by HELCOM, but still we know that these problems are still there, and they are not so easy to be solved because of the years and decades of accumulation of pollutants in this sea. As you know, that HELCOM has this assessment, and we still see that eutrophication remains one of the most pronounced and visually seen every year in this Baltic Sea blooms. But as we see, HELCOM now has this separate sector, the marine litter, and now it's growing studies in this area because of its quite urgency in this area. So just a few words about this problem. In general, it's a global problem. And why is that? Because we all use plastic, we all use all these plastic products, and the annual plastic production has increased dramatically during last years, and you can see in figures, it's an enormous amount of plastic is produced every year. And we all know that it's not going to stop. It's only going to be produced more because of our use of plastic, because of our dependence on this material. Upon the global estimates, the estimated proportion of plastic among total global marine debris ranges from 60 to 80%. So it's in some areas it's even more. So most of the marine debris in general, it consists of plastic. As we know that most of the plastic waste is coming from in developing countries, but then it circulated around the world ocean and becoming the global problem. And here I would just also like to point out that the global production, as you see, the global production is increasing exponentially of plastic, of polymer products. And this is why we say that more than half of the plastic has been produced in the last 15 years. And that makes this such an urgency for this problem. Talking about the pathways of plastic into the marine environment, most of it comes from rivers, from those big rivers carrying the plastic waste into the ocean, where it accumulates and sinks down to the bottom and accumulates in the bottoms. And not only in the bottoms, but also is included in the food chain, in microparticles, and then is accumulated in marine organisms. So as Professor Richard Thompson, as we call him, the father of microplastics, said in this most famous paper, Lost in Sea, Where is All Plastic, he showed that the global assessments show that the plastic, the most of marine litter is plastic, and the most of this plastic comes from sanitary waste and all other household wastes, and so-called nets, ghost nets, the remains of the waste of fishery industry. And also he showed that, many researchers worked on this subject, showed that this accumulation of the global accumulation of litter in specific areas of the world ocean, and you can see they are called, as you know, garbage patches, that are focused in specific areas of the world ocean. And as you can see, this is just an example of the Pacific garbage patch. The amount of litter just in one particular point of this garbage patch is quite large. So this is just a sample, the example of the sample from the Pacific garbage patch. So that's the type of litter that is floating in the surface and in the water column in the Pacific, just in the center of the Pacific, thousands of kilometers away from the shore. So today, the marine litter research is focused in many areas, in all environmental compartments, but at the same time, the most studied are the beaches around the world, because it's the easiest way to study the plastic litter that is washed ashore, and the water is also studied quite a lot. So a lot of studies are carried out in this direction, and this is where our work is also held in the Baltic Sea. So this is just the example of the microplastics, microliter, so-called, as the size which is 5 millimeters. It can be less, but not more. So microliter is everything which is below 5 millimeters. And here we also distinguish between primary, secondary microplastics. Primary, the one that is produced intentionally to produce, then afterwards produce the plastic items, plastic production, and then we have secondary microplastics that is made of fragments of the large plastic, weathered plastics. And what about the Baltic Sea? In the Baltic Sea, as many assessments showed that in the recent years, that the most important reason for marine litter in the Baltic Sea is so-called consumer behavior. So because the main source of plastic is household-related waste. So these are just the data of the largest project carried out in the Baltic Sea. It's called Marine litter in the Baltic Sea. And when the researchers of different countries collaborated together in monitoring of beaches of different types around the Baltic Sea, and they collected items along the strips, 100-meter strips in the beaches, and as you can see that there are quite a lot of items, so it's over 200 items per 1 100 meters of a beach. And at least half of marine litter in the Baltic Sea originates from household-related waste. This includes sanitary waste, so these items like cotton bud sticks, all other types of sanitary things that you use in your everyday life. So this all goes flushed down the toilet and goes straight into the Baltic Sea. And also a lot of things are associated with the recreational activities of tourists, which add up to 33%. And also a lot of litter is accumulated on the shore or on the bottom, sorry. And this is just an example of what is that the lost nets of fishing nets are accumulated on the bottoms. And also, I would like to say that in the Baltic Sea area, we have these, not just the HELCOM Baltic Sea Action Plan, but also the regional marine litter action plan that was adopted in 2015. And this year it's going to be adopted in a new version of it. And you can see that this action plan is dedicated to development of indicators and targets of what actually is bad in terms of marine litter. Yes, so the composition, sources, and pathways. But at the same time, we see that so far it focuses only on waste management. So not much efforts are here for monitoring strategies. So that's the main problem today, and not only in the Baltic Sea, but around the world, that there are no harmonized monitoring strategies for monitoring the marine litter, the microplastics. There are a lot of different methods applied in terms of sampling of water, of sand, so of different compartments. Different research teams apply different methodologies, and data, after all, are not comparable. That's the main problem in general of assessing the marine litter problem in the world today. So our project, I will just touch upon shortly right now. This project we have been carrying out for 3 years now, together with our colleagues from the Institute of Oceanology in Kaliningrad. And we have been collecting litter on the beaches in the Russian part of the Gulf of Finland and in the Russian part of the Baltic Sea in Kaliningrad area, testing different methods of litter sampling on different beaches, and testing the suitability of beaches, etc. And also we had some modeling experiments. And what I can say that our results, I will just briefly talk about them, that as you know, Neva River flows into the Gulf of Finland. It's the largest river in the Baltic Sea, and St. Petersburg is the largest city, so contributing quite a lot in terms of pollutants, of course. And marine litter is not an exception, but we kind of confirmed the hypothesis that the most of the litter is accumulated in the Neva Bay, and not much is carried further away. This is just an example of types of litter that we collect on the beaches, and it's not very different from the beaches on the Atlantic, for example, or on some Pacific coasts. So many of it is cotton bud sticks that you flush down the toilet. It's some parts of other sanitary waste, other like caps, etc. So these are quite very typical types of litter, not only for the Baltic. So it's really the global problem, and the types of litter is quite common for any part of the world. In terms of composition, you can see the plastic pellets, so-called primary microplastics. Quite a lot of it is dispersed in the environment: glass, cigarette butts, etc. And these are just our results, showing that most of the accumulation of litter happens in the Neva Bay. Not much is carried further. Which is actually good, I think, yes, for the Baltic Sea. And we have now published the final work about that. So if you are interested, you can ask me. I will send you this chapter, because it's not I think open access yet. And also we had some modeling experiments also confirming that these currents bringing the microparticles, they are bringing it along the northern shore of the Neva Bay and the Gulf of Finland. So this is also our experiments. So just to conclude the final words, that the pollution of the Baltic Sea beaches is lower compared to other areas of the world, is because we compared our studies with other areas, and in general, the Baltic Sea beaches are much lower polluted than, for example, Northern Atlantic beaches. At the same time, the pollution on the beaches of the Gulf of Finland is much larger than any other areas of the Baltic Sea. So our enclosed type lagoons, bays, they serve as an accumulation zone of this litter. And this just few words about the composition, but I think I'll just leave it here, and I'd like to thank you and leave some space for questions if there are any. Yes, thank you, and sorry for yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Pontus, can I ask something? Because I posted in the chat. Just I would like to ask you.
Ask your question.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Just I would like to ask if do you have any installations for processing these disposals and possibly doing some recycling of them, if it is possible, or to destroy them, if in the area you have some installations for processing the plastics?
Well, we have some, this industry is very new, the industry of recycling the plastic products. So it is developing in our area, that's for sure, because we have special places where people can collect their plastic waste and like hand it in. So because then it goes to this plastic recycling organizations. But this industry is only growing, so they exist, but they are not enough to recycle so much waste that is produced in the area.
Yes, because I'm doing the same research for Mediterranean, and possibly we should communicate on that.
Okay.
Okay, Pontus, can I? Yes. Okay, Alexandra, we've got two questions for you. In your opinion, which are the best techniques of collecting wastes in the Baltic Sea?
I would say that there are no best techniques, because each technique depends on on the aim of your study. And it's the first thing, and the second on what depends on how much money do you have. Because there are this kind of simple techniques that can, like visual monitoring, or like which is applied in citizen science. So any volunteer can go on the beach and collect the large items. And there are these kind of high-tech monitoring techniques, like filtering devices for water that filter nano particles. So this all depends on the area of your research and what resources do you have.
Thank you. And the second question, are there certain types of plastic that are more harmful than others? If so, which ones?
This is also a big question. I mean, it's not an easy one to answer, because in general, all plastics are considered toxic, harmful, yes, because they contain in this material all these types of plasticizers, some other toxic substances that make these polymers actually more how to say to live longer, so that giving them longer life. Yes, because the plastics polymers were invented to live forever, so that was the main purpose of their invention. So they are all toxic, but the toxicity is also growing because they can absorb on their surface those toxic toxic substances that are dissolved in water. That's why the more polluted is the water itself, the more toxic can be the particle, because the plastic particle, what is the most harmful in it, because it can travel a long time, collecting all those harmful substances in water, collecting it on the surface, and traveling and transporting them further and down to the food chain.
Thank you very much for this very comprehensive, I think, answer. And the third question, how can we make the data more coherent and comparable between different countries and regions?
To harmonize our methods, monitoring methods. So to have this kind of intercalibrations, so to have projects, international projects, where we all compare our methods, where we come together, sample water or sand with different methods, then can compare that. So it's called the harmonization or intercalibration. That's the only thing. Otherwise, we still cannot compare the data.
Okay, thank you. The next question. How to study microplastics in seabed sediments?
Well, you can either collect the large items. There are some this kind of things like underwater vehicles, I think they are called ROVs, I think, yeah. So I'm not the bottom expert, but I know that they have these underwater vehicles that are like robots that collect, yeah, that collect, that scan the bottom and have the picture of large items. Or, of course, you can have the bottom grabs and collect sediments with grab. That will be another fraction, yeah.
Okay, are you ready for the next question, Alexandra?
But I think there are other speakers that have to talk.
No, we've got some, just 2 minutes for question. So the next question, what is the situation for beaches on the Estonian and Finnish shores of the Gulf of Finland regarding marine litter?
Well, as I said, that our project was dedicated to comparison of, to study of Russian areas, and we compared our data with the Baltic in general. So in general, the beaches in the Gulf of Finland, in the Russian part of the Gulf of Finland, are much more polluted due to the river Neva flow, so which is quite kind of evident, and it's not the surprise. So Estonian coasts are less polluted, and Finnish coasts are less polluted in terms of concentration. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you very much for this substantial professional answers. Thank you very much, Alexander.